right, well, welcome to your foundational workout. So today's workout is going to be the 5 foundational movements. This is a workout that you could do 2 to 3 times a week and kind of check all of the boxes and build full body strength. So how I formatted this is you're going to do each exercise. You've got 3 rounds and we're going to go for 10 reps of each. So I am going to demonstrate a beginner version, an intermediate version, and then an advanced version for each one of these exercises so that you are able to progress and grow with this workout. Again, you could do this 2 to 3 times a week and check all the boxes. We have our 5 foundational movements. So our 5 foundational movements are squat, hinge, row, push, overhead press. Those are our 5. And then I've added in some core work and then a little cardio finisher. It actually is more foundational strength in nature, but it will definitely get your heart rate up. All right, so without further ado, you are going to want to start with a warm-up. So basically, you want to do some air squats, kind of warming those legs up. You could add some, hamstring curls here. So you want to do a good 5-minute warm-up. You could do some torso twists to get some nice movement in that torso. You can bring those arms down, get a little bit of heat in those shoulders. We could do some punches forward. So just really making sure that you get your heart rate up just a little bit. You get your body nice and warm before you get into your workout. So again, this is all self-paced. You're going to want to take your time, make sure your form is great, and then you really want to take a good 60 to 90 second rest in between your sets. Resting is so important for muscle adaptation. We want to signal the body to build muscle, so that is going to be important throughout your 5 functional exercises and the core work. Once we get to that cardio finisher, we actually want to speed it up a little bit and get the heart rate up. So we won't worry too much about those 90-second rests, but definitely build those in. All right, so our very first exercise, we're gonna start right off the top with a basic, is the squat. So your beginner move for the squat would be totally body weight and so totally body weight, and we're gonna start with a sit to stand. So basically you're gonna have a chair or a bench or a seat behind you. Feet are gonna be out a little bit wider than those hips, and it's okay if the toes turn out just slightly, so whatever feels comfortable for you. You're gonna come down and actually take a full seat on whatever surface you're using, just make sure it's nice and stable. And then when I come up, I'm going to think about my knees tracking in line with my second and third toe, and then I'm going to push through my heels, but the balls of my feet are going to stay on the floor also. So almost thinking of the foot as like a triangle. So you've got the heel is the point of the triangle, and then underneath your big toe and your little toe in that ball of the mound of your foot is the top of that flat top part of the triangle. So let's say if the triangle was upside down. So I want you to think push through the heels, but keep those balls of the feet on the floor too. So you're going to push and come up to stand. And then lower with control, push to come up with stand. So this is our beginner movement. Obviously, I'm not using any weight here. I'm just using my body weight. And I should be feeling my glutes and my hamstrings engage when I push through those heels. So really thinking about that. That's your beginner movement. Next up, intermediate, would be to add a weight. So I'm going to add 1 dumbbell here. I'm going to hold it like a goblet, so this is called a goblet squat. You are welcome to continue to do that full sit to stand if you're feeling like this is getting a little bit easy with the body weight, but I'm not quite ready for a freestanding squat yet. If you are ready for that freestanding squat, holding that weight right against the chest, knees track right in line with second and third toe, and my booty goes way, way back, just like I'm trying to sit on this chair. And then push through those heels, again with that tripod in mind. Head and chest stays up. and you would do 10 of these. So remember, we're doing 10 reps of whatever version you choose, and then 3 rounds with that 60 to 90 second rest in between. To progress this a little bit more in this intermediate range, just add a little tempo. So if those goblet squats, freestanding, are starting to get a little bit easier, you can come down for 3, hold for 1, push up for 1. Down for 3, hold for 1, push up for 1. So each time I come down for 3, hold for 1, and push up for 1 is 1. So again, you would do 10 of those. That's your intermediate. Next up, for our advanced, you could do a split squat. So I am gonna grab 2 weights for this. So a split squat would be a staggered stance. And then I am going to come down and push up. Come down and push up. So I've got my split squat and I'm coming down into that squat. Of course, you would have to do 10 on each side here in this split squat. So notice how I have my legs nice and wide. This is going to give me some more stability, okay? As your balance gets better, your split squat can get narrower, okay? So notice how my split squat is a little bit narrower here. Beautiful. So this is the advanced version. Everything else still applies. Knee tracks, front knee tracks in line with second and third toe. My body is up nice and tall. I'm pushing through that heel, but I still have that tripod. Of course, you would have to do 10 on each side there. One more advance, if you want it in this advanced version, would be a squat with a pulse. So I'm going to come down into my squat. I'm going to stay in this squat position and pulse it out for 10. So this is going to be a little bit harder. Knees still tracking in line with second and third toe. My head and chest are still up. If I turn to the side here, booty is way back, head and chest is up, and then I'm pulsing. My weight is in those heels, but the balls of those feet are still on the floor. That is our squat. Next up, we have hinges. Hinges can be a really challenging progression for some folks. So if you've never done a hinge before and you're kind of struggling with the mechanics of it, a really great beginner exercise to prepare you for the hinge would be the glute bridge. So what I'm going to do here is lie on my back, my knees are bent, hands are on either side of my body. I'm going to tilt my tailbone just slightly so that I'm flattening my low back on the mat, and then lift up into my bridge. Notice how I'm not way up here with an arched back, okay? So I've got a tilted tailbone, core is engaged, and I'm gonna hold that tilt and lift up. So notice how I'm not really high up in this bridge. What I am feeling a lot of is my hamstrings and my glutes. That's what I wanna feel here. So really thinking about tilting that tailbone. And then another little trick would be to think in your mind's eye of pulling those heels towards your butt. So my heels don't actually move, but in my brain, I'm thinking about pulling them to my butt, and that's gonna engage those glutes and hamstrings. So you would do 10 of these. This would be your beginner movement if you are still struggling with your hinge pattern. Another beginner exercise for that hinge pattern would be to use a wall. So you could do a wall hinge. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set myself up about a foot away from my wall. I'm going to stand up nice and tall. What I'm going to think about is pushing my hips back so that they actually touch this wall. So nothing else moves first. The very first thing I move is my hips. So I'm going to push my hips back, touch that wall, push through my heels to come up. Again, I'm thinking about that tripod for those feet, but the weight is mostly in my heels, maybe about 75-25, but the balls of my feet underneath, so right behind my big toe, right behind my little toe, are on the floor. Pushing back, butt touches the wall. Notice how when I'm in this position here, my back is nice and flat. We don't want to arch here. So you want to tuck that belly. You want that back nice and flat and come up. So this is a great beginner hinge pattern before we even start loading this, to make sure that we are using those right muscles. You should feel glutes, you should feel hamstrings, you should not feel low back. If you feel low back, start back on the floor with those glute bridges, build a little more strength, and then work on your hinge pattern again another time. So push those hips back. Notice how I'm really, really reaching for that wall with my butt. That's your beginner movement for your hinge. Next would be an RDL. So once you have that hinge pattern down and it feels comfortable and it's appropriate, then we're gonna start loading this. So I'm gonna use 2 weights. You could use one. One weight is completely fine. Starting out with, this is our intermediate. So again, I'm gonna turn to the side here. I'm starting with a nice solid posture. My ankles are right underneath my hips, so I'm not like a real wide stance. Ankles are right underneath those hips. Shoulders are up, back, and down. My pelvis is tucked under tightly or slightly, and my belly is pulling up and in. So now, same thing as with that wall hinge, I'm going to push my hips back as I slide the weight down my body. My knees are just nice and soft. I'm probably going to get to about just below my knees, or maybe even mid-shin, depending on how long your arms are. And then I'm going to push through those heels to come up and stand. I'm going to squeeze my butt at the top. I'm not going to arch, okay? So just a butt squeeze. So push those hips back, slide the weight down, come up, squeeze the butt. Beautiful. So you have 10 of these in that intermediate. Of course, next level in the intermediate would be a kickstand. So I'm going to lift up onto the ball of one foot, soft knee on the standing leg. Same thing, I'm going to hinge forward, slide the weight down, push through the heel to come up. So this is just going to load one leg a little bit more. A little more work. So of course you would do 10 on each side here. Soft knee, long back, pushing those hips back. Beautiful. Our advanced version of this move would be a single leg deadlift. So this is quite challenging for the balance. So shoulders up, back, and down. Ankles right underneath those hips. I'm going to shift all of my weight into one leg. As I hinge forward, the leg that's on the ball of the foot is going to come up into a float. So I'm going to reach down towards the ankle, push through the heel to come up. Reach down towards the ankle, push through the heel to come up. So as you can imagine, these are quite a bit more challenging than the kickstand. Got a lot of balance involved. And you'll go for 10 on each side of those. And then of course, one more advancement here for our hinge pattern would be to be in a hinged position. So, and then hold there. So I'm going to set up my hinge. I'm going to hinge forward. So that nice long flat back. I'm going to add a row, push through those heels, come up and squeeze my butt at the top. Again, no arch, just a squeeze. So coming down into that hinge, one row, push through the heels and come up. So obviously this is going to be a little bit more challenging because we're adding a combination move to our hinge pattern, and 10 of those. And then of course, the heavier the weights, the more challenging this becomes. Next up, we have a row. So we did just kind of preview a row right there with our advanced hinge with the row. So beginner for a row, you're going to want to give yourself something to support yourself on. So if you have a bench or a coffee table or a chair, you're going to place one hand on that surface. Leg is going to be back, that the hand has the weight. My shoulders are going to stay facing the floor. I've got a soft knee, and I'm going to row the dumbbell towards my ribs and release. Row and release. So this is our beginner move. You got 10 of these times that 3 rounds, 60 to 90 second rest in between our rounds. So what I'm not doing here is opening up. I'm keeping those shoulders facing the floor as I row that dumbbell towards my ribs. You're thinking about working the shoulder blade on the back of the arm that has the dumbbell. So that is the beginner move. Intermediate move is a bent over row. So we did just do this in that hinge position. So we're going to be hinged, but we're going to stay here. You're going to row and release, row and release. So my belly is pulling up and in. My back is nice and long and flat. And I'm squeezing those shoulder blades together in the back as I row those ribs toward those weights towards my ribs. So what I'm not doing is shrugging the shoulders up towards my neck, keeping those shoulders down. I'm kind of puffing my chest out slightly as I row. So you've got 10 of those times your 3 sets with your rests. Another intermediate version of that would be to add a band. You're going to place the band around the arch of one foot. The other leg's going to be back in a split stance. And I'm hanging on to the band with the opposite arm of the foot that it's around the arch. So I'm going to come down into a hinge, one row, press through the heels and come up. Down, row, and up. So again, we're kind of comboing our hinge pattern with a row. You could also, if you want a little bit more here, stay in this hinged position and then just do your 10 rows from this position here. So if I turn to the side, I'm going to stay in my hinge, nice long flat back, and I'm going to row across in that fashion, 10 on each side, whichever you choose, 10 times 3 sets. Our advanced version of our row is going to add some core work. So we're going to come down into hands and knees. So I'm going to hang on to my dumbbells in this hand and knee position. My shoulders are over my wrists. My knees are right up underneath my hips. My belly's pulling up and in. My back is nice and flat, so I'm not arching, nice and flat. So what we're going to do here is think of bird dog. So I'm going to extend one leg, and then I'm going to row with the opposite arm. Extend and row, relief, extend and row. I'm rowing towards my hip here. So not so much towards the ribs like we do when we stand. It's more rowing towards the hip. So you would have 10 of these on each side, which would take you to 20 total. That's an advanced move. If that feels easy for you and you want to take it up to beast mode, we've got renegade rows in your high plank. Perfect high plank, right? My tailbone is tucked, my heels are pressing back, my quads are tight, my glutes are tight. I'm going to row and release, row and release. Again, shooting for like lower ribs here and trying to limit the amount my body moves from side to side as I row up. 10 on each side, 20 total. That's quite the up level. Get your heart going a little bit. All right, now we're into our push. So, we've got the beginner move for our push would be wall push-ups. So I'm going to use this wall again. So what you would do is set yourself up against the wall. Hands are out a little bit wider than your chest and at chest level. You're going to walk your body back. You're going to come forward. Your chest lands right between your hands. You're going to push that wall away. Chest lands between the hands. Push that wall away. So this would be your beginner version. Elbows come down at like a 45-degree angle. So as I push myself close, notice how my elbows are down at this 45. I don't want my elbows way up here. It doesn't matter which version of a push-up you're doing. You don't want those elbows way up here. You want them here in this 45-degree angle. chest always lands between those hands. So standing against a wall, that's a first version. So the next thing you could do for a push or chest press, if wall push-ups are really challenging, what you can do is a chest press. So you're gonna lay on the floor on your back, knees are bent, arms are out in a goal post. So again, thinking a little bit more along the lines of a 45-degree angle, not like straight out. And then pressing those weights right up over the chest and coming down, press and down. So you would do 10 of these or 10 of those wall push-ups as your beginner move. Thinking about squeezing that chest as you press those weights up and over it. And then of course you've got 3 sets of those. This move is great. It can be a beginner, an intermediate, or an advanced move depending on the weight. This can get really challenging the heavier that you press that weight up over the chest. Of course, another intermediate version of a press would be either an incline or a knee push-up. So incline push-up just means that you're gonna have a surface that's up a little bit higher. So let's say I could use my couch here or a bench. So basically I would set myself up so that I was using that to do my push-ups instead of all the way on the floor up in a full push-up position. If that's not an option for you, you can come down onto your knees. I'm going to push the balls of my feet into the floor and my chest is going to land right between my hands. I'm going to push my body away from the floor. So I'm going to actively think about pushing that body away from the floor and exhaling as I do so. So 10 incline or 10 knee push-ups, that would be your intermediate. And then of course our advanced would be a full push-up. So up in that full plank position, again, perfect plank. So my tailbone is tucked, my belly is up and in, my heels are pressing back, I'm coming down, my chest lands right between my hands, push that floor away. So this would be your advanced version. Or if that's starting to get a little bit easy for you, you can add some tempo to it. So you could come down for 3, hold for 3, up for 3. Any type of tempo would be great. Or you could come down, push up, shoulder tap, down, push up, shoulder tap. So a lot of options there for your advanced push up. Of course, you can also do floor lying chest presses with something nice and heavy. That's also an option. Our 5th exercise in our functional movement would be an overhead press. So my beginner overhead press, I would use a band. I'm going to cross my hand across my chest, and then I'm going to do overhead press, single arm overhead press, 10 on each side, or place that band around the wrists of both hands and overhead press, double overhead press 10 of those. So that would be a nice place to start with your overhead press. Another option, if the band is starting to get easier for you, would be a nice lightweight, so a 5 or an 8 in a half kneeling. So I'm going to have my knee up and one knee on the mat. The leg that has the knee up is the one that has the weight, and I'm going to press up while I engage my core with a pretty light to moderate weight. This would be your other option for a beginner overhead press. You would do 10 on each side. Of course, you would switch your stance. Off you go. Next up would be a standing double overhead press. So this would be our intermediate. Belly's pulling up and in. So anytime we press weights over our head, we want to make sure that we have nice support for the low back. So don't let that back arch. Tuck that tailbone and squeeze your glutes. It really makes a huge difference in that stability and protection for the spine. So I'm squeezing my glutes. I'm going to bring those weights up and I'm going to press both up at the same time, palms facing in or palms facing out. Either one of these are an option for those overhead presses. That's your intermediate. And then of course, as you add weight to those overhead presses, they're going to get more challenging. You could also add an alternating with a little bit heavier of a weight too. So that would be your intermediate overhead press. For your advanced single arm rotational press, again, I've got this nice solid stance. My glutes are squeezing. I'm going to place the weight at my shoulder. I'm going to press and twist out and come in. Press, twist out, and come in. So this would be an advanced movement. Once you've built some strength in those arms and in those shoulders, this would be something that you could go for. Starting with something a little bit lighter as you're learning the movement. As this weight gets heavier, you want to use your legs. So I'm going to press with my legs and bring it back. Press and back. And of course you would do 10 on each side with that rotation out and that heavier weight. And then of course, if you were really looking for something advanced, you would do a march with an overhead press, which is going to challenge your balance, your core. It's going to be quite challenging to do. So those are our 5 foundational exercises. Remember, you want to do 10 reps of each exercise, each side if you're alternating or doing each side separately, and then 3 rounds with that 60 to 90 second rest in between. For our core exercise, we have dead bug, everybody's favorite. So beginner dead bug, you're on your back, legs are in tabletop, arms are over the chest. You can press out with one leg, press out with the other leg. That's one version of a beginner dead bug. The other version would be the legs stay still and the arm comes back. Again, you want to do 10 on each side. So you're going for 20. That's a lot here. So pick the version that's right for you if you're a beginner. Next version, alternating opposite arm and leg. Looks just like this. Push through that heel. So those are both of your beginner versions of your dead bug. So if you wanted to intensify this, your intermediate would be to have a band. You're going to have arms up over the chest, tension on that band, and then you're just going to hold that tension on the band as you press out with the heel of each leg. So that's one version of an intermediate. The other version would be to place that band around the arches of your feet and then press out and in. So this is going to add a little bit extra to that lower body part of our dead bug. So this is your intermediate move. And then of course, if you want to up level this dead bug, you could do a lat pull down with your dead bug. So you would have the band around the wrists, legs are in tabletop. I'm going to bring my arms up over my head with my palms facing the ceiling. I'm going to leave my legs here to start out with, and then I'm going to pull my elbows down into a lat pull down, okay? And then of course we would add that leg. So this is going to work core and lats and glutes and all of the things in our advanced lat pull down dead bug. The other version of that you could do would be to add a weight. Legs are in tabletop. The weight comes back and up and over. So this would be an up level on the one with the band. And of course you're doing 10 of those. All right. Our very last core exercise is a rotational core exercise, and we're gonna do a half kneeling wood chopper. So this can be a beginner or an intermediate or an advanced move. You're going to have one knee up, the weight is at the shoulder, that the knee is up. I'm going to twist and bring the weight to my hip and then bring the weight back to my shoulder. You would go for 10 of these on each side times your 3 sets. Now, how do we make this intermediate and advanced? Add weight. So starting with something really light would be beginner, moving up to something a little bit more moderate would be intermediate, and then using something really heavy is gonna take that to the next level. We've almost made it through this whole workout. Our very last thing is our finisher. So we're gonna get the heart rate up. I'm gonna show you the moves, and then you will do 30 seconds of each exercise without a rest. So 30 seconds, it's gonna build, it's like a ladder. And then you'll take a 2-minute rest, and then you will do it again. So first up, we have squat press. So if you're a beginner, you can do this with a band or without weights at all. Intermediate or heavy, or excuse me, advanced, you're just going to increase that weight. So you're gonna go for a squat. You can also, as a beginner, do this as a sit to stand, okay? So remember what our beginning options were for our squat. So take any one of those options for this. So it's a squat with an overhead press. Band, body weight, progress it with weights as needed. You have 30 seconds of these. And then at the end of 30 seconds, you are immediately going to come into a hinge with a row, double row, okay? So if you need to modify this for a beginner, you can do body weight. There is nothing wrong with body weight. This is a great option for a beginner. And then to progress this, you could do this with a band. You could do this with just one weight. And then of course, work your way up to heavier weights. So that is your second 30 seconds. Then we're gonna do a rotational alternating punch. So I'm gonna be standing, I'm gonna rotate as I pivot on this back foot, punch, come to center, rotate, punch, rotate, punch, rotate, punch. This would be my beginner, nice and slow. Picking up the pace is going to bring that heart rate up. That would take it to a more intermediate. And then of course, if you really want more, you would add some weights to this and twist and punch. When you add weights, so important to use the glute as your foundation. So I am squeezing the glute of the back leg really hard as I punch that weight forward. 30 seconds of whichever one you choose. Your last one before your 2-minute rest will be an overhead march. So one weight or no weights. This can totally be arms up. This could be a band. Obviously you progress this up with weights, and then a march, overhead march, 30 seconds. So then you would take your 2-minute rest. So you've got squat press for 30 seconds, hinge row for 30 seconds, alternating rotational punch for 30 seconds, overhead carry for 30 seconds, 2-minute rest. Any one of the modifications that you need. And then you would repeat that again. That would be your functional strength cardio finisher. I hope you enjoy this workout. Again, this is designed so that you could do this 2 to 3 times a week for pretty much ever. You might get bored, but you could do it forever and just keep building strength and keep building functionality. Be sure you do a nice cool down and a stretch at the end of this workout, and hopefully it works great for you. Have a good one.